Hello and welcome back to another episode of the world-renowned Building HVAC Science Podcast. Yes, we do have listeners from around the world. Thank you for listeners from around the world. We appreciate you. We're doing this podcast to help create better, more knowledgeable HVAC and building performance technicians, helping the two professions better understand each other. This podcast aims to make customers happy in the homes and buildings they live and work in via the efforts of the professionals that largely listen to this podcast. Please like, share this podcast if you think it's interesting and is impactful. Speaking of impactful, in this episode, Eric and I welcome a longtime HVAC instructor, Mike Uselof, who shares his remarkable journey from answering a humble job ad in 1983 to becoming a passionate educator with the United Association. Mike reflects on the value of learning through hands-on experience, the evolution of HVAC technology, and the crucial role that training plays in creating resilient, adaptable tradespeople. He shares some stories from his early days about wiring supermarkets and living above the shop, to teaching thousands of apprentices over 2 decades. He also dives deep into the shifting landscape of the HVAC world, from electrification efforts to new refrigerants, and the importance of teaching logic, not just facts. And the conversation at the end takes a heartfelt turn, which will allow you to listen to and absorb about the emotional and mental demands that are often caused by service in the trades. A couple great quotes from the episode from Mike. We don't just teach a trade, we teach a career that changes lives. I think he means the lives of both the practitioners and the people that the work is done for. Another quote, facts become data, data becomes knowledge, and wisdom is knowing what to fix. Then a final quote, if it doesn't make you tick, you might want to pick a different field. He picked this field and he loves it, and I think that'll come through in the podcast. So let's listen to Mike talk with Eric and I about heat transfer and heart, what 40 years in HVAC can teach us all.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Building HVAC Science Podcast. Eric Kaiser here, and the great overkill Bill Spohn right over there. Yeah, he gets that name from us because he overkills everything, spreadsheets and all. And special guest, Michael Uselof, with us today. Michael, let's learn a little bit about you. Tell us about where you're from and what you do.
I went to high school, graduated in a very slow manner. I graduated in 1984. 1983, I was looking for some work, and I applied to an ad that was available for me that said, "Are you afraid of heights? And do you like to work with your hands?" And I immediately replied to that ad, and it was doing HVAC. So I absolutely loved it. And I was rewarded with a paycheck at the end of the week, and it was $4 an hour. So I was doing pretty well back then.
Wow. In 1983.
Yeah, 1983, yeah.
That was pretty good wages for that time.
Yep, I was able to put the 99-cent gas in my El Camino.
That's a picture right there, Mike.
Yes.
What year El Camino?
76.
We got to get the important stuff here. Okay. All right. So it would have had like a 350 and probably a turbo 350 in it then?
Yeah, just a 350. Yep. Too much of an engine for a little car like that.
All right. We're not going to turn this into car talk. So let's go back to HVAC.
There's a whole nother podcast.
I don't think it had air conditioning.
270 air conditioning on that, right?
Yes. I went through high school, and at that point had no idea what I wanted to do. I tried to go to college, and it didn't really work out for me. And I will say, at 18, 19 years old, my brain wasn't there to sit in a classroom and understand stuff at a community college. I ended up moving out to California, and out in California, I ended up doing a couple of jobs. And I went to school at Mount San Antonio College, and that is in Walnut, California. It's a community college, and it had an HVAC program in it. And now I was 19 years old, sitting in school, learning stuff and applying it, and the science and the math, everything came together, and I was able to observe it. And I thought, this is absolutely great. And I was passing classes and enjoyed how all this stuff worked together, and I have loved it ever since.
That's so cool. You have a quote on your LinkedIn page, which I love. It's from Albert Einstein. You want me to read it, or you remember what you put there?
Yes, I do, but you could read it, yes.
If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. That echoes so strong with me. Why did you put it up there? What does that mean to you?
I try very hard to break stuff down into simple concepts so that everybody can understand it. I try very hard to understand it at a 5th or 6th grade level, honestly. I am very fortunate. I do teach Sunday school to 3rd through 5th graders, and that helps out a lot because they're very quick to ask, what does that mean? How does that work? And what's going on? And I just naturally start to assume that with an older audience because somebody at that age group will ask. Some of the students that we have right now, they won't ask because they don't want to feel stupid. So I do not assume that. I try to break stuff down in a very simple manner and don't over-explain it.
We didn't get into what you do, who you teach. We skipped over that.
Yes.
Why don't you backfill us on that?
So going back to California, I graduated out of that program, was on the dean's list. I did incredibly well. I was very happy with that program, and it helped me out immensely. Got a job in supermarket refrigeration right out of school. It was all the control work in Ralph's, the giant supermarket in Lancaster, California. And I was in my 20s wiring a supermarket. And my dad came out to visit me from New York. And what I ended up doing was I brought him to the job site, brought him upstairs to the panels that I had built, and I showed him where I signed my name on the panels. It was something that I accomplished and I was very proud of. And this is the very awesome thing about our field. We get to see stuff work after we install it. It's always something I've been excited about to see that happen. So after California, moved back to New York, worked for a couple of different shops. At this point, I worked for a 3-person shop. We did absolutely everything. And I assumed that the field meant heating, air conditioning, refrigeration, install, service, controls, refrigerated warehouses, morgues, data centers, and delis. And we worked on everything. At this point, I really hit it big because I was up to $7.25 an hour. That was pretty good. So I upgraded and bought a 1500 series GMC pickup truck. So
there's like little milestones in a timeline. I'm seeing pictures of cars and wages.
That's it. Yeah, I thought I would do it that way. I worked for a 3-man shop. One of the guys was apprentice, and me and the other guy were journey workers. And I was on emergency service 26 weeks out of the year. We went back and forth with emergency service with all of that. That was a little bit rough. And at a point, I'm still good friends with this gentleman. His name is Paul McIntosh. He ended up and still has MS, and he was out. And I was on call for almost a year straight with all those different accounts.
Oh, I can't imagine that. Wow.
That was a lot of service calls.
You might as well just not have a house. You might as well just park a mailbox on the side of your service truck for that many accounts and that very amount of stuff.
Well, at this point, I actually had time to start dating. So very shortly after that, ended up getting married. So I then ended up taking a job, and it was for a pretty large commercial company in New Jersey. And it was in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, very large area. And I was absolutely thrilled because now I think I'm up to maybe $18 an hour. But it had annuity, pension, retirement, vacation fund, and great training. And it was the first union shop that I worked for. I was about 30 years old. I wanted very much to be able to provide for my wife. I didn't want to have all that on call. And it allowed me to be on call once every 6 weeks instead. So that was a little bit better. And I think it eventually dropped to 6 times a year with the size of the shop. And that was a lot easier on the family. After that, 2004, and there was a job opening for an instructor at the United Association in New Jersey. I applied for that job, and they hired me, and I just thought it was absolutely great. I had taught Sunday school. I enjoy teaching stuff. I enjoy being with such a great group of men and women that want to learn. And we're not just teaching a trade, we're teaching a career for these guys and girls. The skills that they're going to learn here, they're going to be able to provide for their family. And I thought that was absolutely just a great opportunity. I have been doing that since 2004. It was a little humbling at times to have somebody come in and say, hey, you taught my dad, but I guess I'm at that point that happened. So
That's a long time to be teaching. I was going to say, you went to teaching the same year that I got in the HVAC trade. So you've been at that a while.
yes.
I got to say that I relate to that because the first guy that I worked under in HVAC, like he told me, he says, I think I'm getting old. I'm starting to replace furnaces that I put in.
Yeah.
Outlasting the equipment.
That's got to be a great feeling. How many students do you think you've taught over the 20, because that's 21 years now?
We graduate approximately 50 guys per year. It's a 5-year program. That's over 1,000 guys easily.
Yeah. That's quite a few lives you've affected through that process and helping them into the trade.
Have you seen any changes in those 21 years between, we'll take it from a couple aspects. One aspect, the actual curriculum, what you're teaching, and then secondly, an aspect of the people coming through the program.
A question that I ask the students is, what do you do for a living? And you get I fix this, I install that, I do heat, air conditioning, guys work in large refrigeration shops. And I said, I'm going to oversimplify this for you. We transfer heat in a closed loop system. So our division of the pipe trades, we transfer heat in a closed loop system. And how do we do it? As efficiently as possible. And something that's absolutely great about that, we are one of the few trades that can go into a building and employ this technology and save them more money than it costs for us to be there. I think that that's absolutely great that we're able to do that. And we're working with guys and girls that are doing this. And in all those years, no matter what the economy's done, no matter what the political views are with the environment, who doesn't want to be comfortable for a lower cost? And that's what we do. In 2004, I started, one of the first classes I taught was heat pumps. And back then they're like, oh, those are great. They don't work in this area of the country and they stink. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to still train you on it and you're going to understand it. And now to this day, heat pumps are unbelievably important. And all we do for a living is transfer heat. I teach a 10-week class on heat pumps. I also have received IGSPA certification, which is International Ground Source Heat Pump Association, a certification for installing those and for training guys with that. And it's been absolutely a big growing opportunity for everybody in the field and for constant training. There are things that change in the field, but again, I try to break it down to a very simple manner and explain that that's the indoor coil and outdoor coil, and you're going to transfer the heat into the building or out of the building. And a lot of times that's just enough after a couple of classes and going through the books for them to have a good idea how this works. It's not some magical device or something. All we're doing is transferring the heat in one direction or another.
So what's the student head count now in the program?
We are over 400 students right now. I didn't know this until I started teaching here. My great uncle was involved in this field, and so were some of his family members. And you could take the literature from World War II to Vietnam all the way into the 80s, and it was all the same exact literature. Today, the books and the material and the codes and the requirements keep changing, and we see those changes all the time, and we try to stay ahead of that a little bit. And we are consistently trained to work with the students and to get this material. We keep taking classes. I was asked to be LEED certified, so I went for that certification, and there's a whole bunch of other certifications. At the end of the day, though, you have to explain it to students. And one of the things with the students today that we were a little reluctant to change on was that the phones are in the classroom. So I'm sure you have all heard about that. We have to work with the phones in the classroom.
That's a big challenge for instructors today, is to figure out how to teach the students really how to use the phones for productive means.
Emerson, Copeland, we have them do teardowns on compressors. They have to put that app on their compressor, on their phone, and diagnose compressors. And then we go out in the shop and work on those compressors, and they diagnose them, and they're able to analyze it using those apps. A lot of the products that you sell on True Tech Tools, they're linked so that you could print out what the status is and you can analyze it. And something I try to explain to the students is phones are full of facts. You have to take the facts and turn them into reliable data. And then it takes knowledge to take that reliable data and line it up properly. And then wisdom is knowing how to fix everything. And unfortunately, I think the schools, from when I was in school all the way till now, they teach about memorizing facts. We have to teach the students how to think. And we just got through 60 students in the first year class came through already Monday and Tuesday. And I asked them, have you ever taken a logic or reasoning class? And not one of them raised their hand. I said, do you know how to think logically or reasonably? And they just looked at me and I'm like, wow, I know it's a bit of an odd question, but how do we understand that the unit's not working just by looking at data? It doesn't mean anything unless they're able to understand how to think logically.
And a person is blessed with that experience, to have had that experience to think logically. And you may have that in your mind as you're talking to someone, but you don't know they've had that experience. And then you get this like awkward disconnect. It's like, why don't they understand this? But you seem like a very patient person that understands that and makes sure everybody's working from the same basis. So congratulations on using that technique.
You were at the HVAC or symposium in Florida?
Yeah, I think I've missed only one so far.
Okay. I absolutely love the way that's set up because they're run-of-the-mill guys that are just excited about what they're doing. And most of the people there are just excited to learn. It's just awesome to be part of that community. And I think that is how most of the people in this field view it. You're up on a hot roof or you're in a cold building, or can't ever say I've really enjoyed morgues, working in morgues. And I tell the guys, on a day like today, working in a minus 30 degree refrigerated warehouse on a day like today, between being outside and inside, it takes a lot. But the fact that you're able to fix stuff and provide for your family, that's something priceless that we're given an opportunity to do. And I do believe this has to make you tick. If it doesn't, you might want to find a different field or a different direction to move in.
Yeah.
And not everybody in this field gets to work in morgues. It's not. It's a weird experience, but you don't have to work in this just to get in the HVAC field.
No. My jokes are received about the same there, though, so I don't know what that means.
But if we do our job correctly as technicians, morgues can be pretty cool.
I'm not going to ask the producer to edit that out, but it's tempting. It's very tempting.
And he did deliver it deadpan.
He did.
Yes.
Deadpan.
Oh, here we go. I love throwing those things in classes because it gets students thinking for a second. And then they're like, oh, man, really?
So United Association, what Eric and I mentioned before we started the podcast, we think you're the first guest in the podcast that comes from UA. And that may not be maybe a topic people are familiar with. Can you give us an overview of UA, how it all works?
The big picture is it's the United Association of Pipe Trades. We go out to August once a year and we have training, and it's state-of-the-art training. I don't know if either of you have been to Michigan for that training. It's international training. It's the ITP system. It's going on in a couple of weeks. We go out there and we get trained, or we train people to work around the U.S., Canada, throughout the world. The first 5 times that you're out there, you're taught how to teach by teachers, so that you usually come from the field like I did and become an instructor. You get taught out there how to instruct. Then you're offered a whole bunch of different opportunities to learn different aspects of the field.
I'll just throw out there, it is an impressive event. I go in every year and work at the International Apprentice Competition.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
I've been helping to judge that for a number of years now. And that's an impressive competition as well. I think it takes 5 or 6 days, and they take the top 6 apprentices through a whole rigorous set of exercises. And that goes for all of the specialties. What are all the specialties in the UA?
Anything that is running a pipe gets put together by us. So that's sprinkler fitters, welders, fitters, plumbers, or HVAC, service and install, high and low tonnage. It's our work. I am specifically at a school that teaches the service division. But if there's anything that goes through a piece of pipe, it's our work. again, what differentiates us is if it is transferring heat in most of the time a closed loop system, it would be more the service division work if it's under a certain tonnage. And then that is all figured out at different levels that are way above my head.
Does that depend more on what the contractor sets as far as what their different workers are going to do then?
You will have shops that can install very large tonnage equipment, and then no matter what, or the majority of the time, depending on where you are in the US and Canada, they'll send somebody to commission the equipment, and then usually the service, no matter what size the equipment is, and that's the way it's set up in New Jersey, will come back on us. So I could be working on incredibly large equipment, but when it's time to be changed out, it'll be the fitter division. I'm not 100% sure how that works region to region, but that's how it's set up in New Jersey. As far as the union goes also, I was making comparable pay when I joined the union, but the annuity, pension, retirement, vacation fund, it made a huge difference. My son was born in 1999, and I remember the first time I held him and we were in a hospital, and I was just like, this has changed my life. This is absolutely great. It was just, besides getting married and staying married for over 30 years, that was an incredibly important event. And I bring that up because I wasn't worrying about paying doctor bills. I wasn't worried about any of that, or the medication or the vitamins. All that stuff was paid for. It was not a concern of mine at all. And I was very glad about that, because I've had a number of friends tell me that they had a child born and how much money it cost them. So that was a huge relief. And it was one of the most exciting parts of my life.
We'll allow you this as a platform to pitch for joining a union. You started to do that right there. Any other aspects of joining a union that you would like to talk about?
They have something called the VIP program, Veterans in Pipe Trades. They will do everything they can to bring guys in and girls in that have served in the military. So that's absolutely a great opportunity also. Also, they're trying very hard to appeal to a younger audience at this point. You get, I think it's the last time I looked, for going through the 5-year program, you get 30 plus college credits. I think it's way higher than that right now. I don't know the exact amount, but you can come into this trade. You will be placed in a shop in the service division, and then you will end up working at a union shop while you're going to school, and there's no debt to you. Once you go through the apprenticeship, it's recognized you are a UA journey worker. Your EPA certifications, anything you have is recognized throughout the US, Canada, Ireland, and wherever else it's recognized. And there are people that they take this career with them wherever they end up in the US, and it travels with them, which is pretty great opportunity. I was not the college material, but while I was working in the field, the UA offered an opportunity through a community college to get an associate's degree. So I ended up pursuing that at night and put that to use and ended up getting a degree in construction management. I didn't see the value of high school when I was in high school, but once I got out and I moved into this field, learning is something that you have to do for life. And it's exciting for me because you get to apply most of the stuff you learn now. And that education was available too. And I don't think it cost me anything except it did cost me time.
But you took a lot away from that time, a lot of retained learning and experience.
Yes.
What are some of the changes you've seen that have impacted you in the classroom in the last few years? Either equipment, tools, students?
Yeah, everything is going to Bluetooth. Everything is a printout. Everything is going to a form somewhere else. So that happens to be a big change. We put a refrigerant out there called CO2. The pressures are way higher than we've ever seen before. And then we also work with the refrigerants that are flammable. So that has resulted in us having to do extra training for them. That has been an aspect that changed. And then the codes. I teach through G-Pro. Are you familiar with G-Pro?
I'm not.
Green Professionals. They do an absolutely great job. We have a 10-week class here for that. And what that ends up doing is it takes the engineers and the architects and the designers and the install guys and the servicemen, and it breaks everything down so that you can understand it at those levels. So they present this material because to speak to an engineer about particulars that we deal with, they might not understand them. And then for somebody who's designing the equipment to throw something out there that they're not familiar with, because everything's changing so quickly, that isn't beneficial either. So G-Pro does a very good job at explaining how the field is changing, and they use their platform a lot of times to show people where these new changes are taking effect and how to understand them in a simple manner. And they do a great job with that.
Sounds like a tremendous resource.
They're out of New York City.
Very nice.
I mentioned it before. They asked me to be LEED certified years ago, but the building codes are right up there with the buildings that want to go LEED at this point. They're starting to aggressively move the building codes. And where I've seen a big change with that is we used to do HVAC and ventilation. What did ventilation mean? And now after COVID and with everything that happened with the fires in Canada and all that, there's a new program out there to make sure that the air quality is better and that we can have air exchanges and safely filtered air.
Yeah.
Those events changed the face of the ventilation side of HVAC a lot, for sure.
Yes.
For sure. I'm curious what you've seen change over the years. You mentioned data earlier, and I like to think of one of the superpowers of technicians is taking that data and interpreting it into what you say, something simple enough that a customer can understand. But what have you seen over the years as far as data acquisition, how we're acquiring data now, and how interpretation has changed? Do you think it's gotten better or more challenging?
I think that it has become a lot more challenging because to the point of the HVAC symposium, we were concerned back then with beer can cold. What the shirt said?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's what we were looking at. Now, something that has happened that has really changed what's going on is I get a utility bill and it says that my usage is up by whatever percent. They're tracking the volts, the amps, the time, the outdoor air, the degree cold and hot days, and they're telling me that my usage has changed.
Wow.
And that's what's happening with all this data. And I start the new technologies class by asking, how much did Google pay for Nest thermostat? And I said, I'm not going to give you the answer. I want you to look that up. So my phone just went and explained to me the answer. So I'll shut that off.
We're going to leave that in.
Yes.
That's reality.
But that's what I asked the guys. I think it was over $3 billion. And that's just for data to have somebody's thermostat information taken off of it. But I think they saw the value that they could save more than it would cost for a monthly prescription. And the utility companies could lower the costs or run your equipment off peak and still provide you with comparable cooling and heating. So again, what do we do for a living? We transfer heat. How do we do it as efficiently as possible? And they saw the value in that with this information that they're gathering. The downside of it is all of a sudden the utility bills go up and you're getting a service call. And how do you interpret that data if you don't understand that, like this summer just happens to be a lot, I think it was a lot hotter than last summer, and it's consistently hotter than last summer in certain areas.
And a lot more humid too.
Yes.
I understand there's some changes in New York State with electrified buildings or electrification of buildings. Do you have any background in that or any opinion on that?
They asked me to go to a NYSERDA event that was in Buffalo that directly spoke to that. And there's a number of resources out there. They want to get off of natural gas. So they have just put into place that I believe it went into place that if you're a 4-family structure or less, that you must have a heat pump water heater. So that would be one of the things. I heard through the grapevine that they want to get rid of natural gas going to the buildings as well. Because when fossil fuel is burnt, the emissions are an issue. They want to move in the direction of, I guess, electrification is one way of describing it, and it's putting heat pumps. They also sent us to work with Mitsubishi because Mitsubishi put out a CO2 water heater for commercial buildings. But who is going to commission and work on this equipment? It's a different animal. It's different training. And I know the UA works very hard to work very closely with Mitsubishi to produce training material, which is awesome.
As we start to wrap up here, you've covered a lot of information about your background, about the training. How about letting the listeners know, like if they are interested in the UA, the training, the benefits and everything, where would they go? How would they start?
It's pretty simple. It's uanj.org for New Jersey. Otherwise, it's just ua.org, United Association. And then there's programs if you're in the military or you're coming out, helmets to hard hats, or veterans in pipe trades.
Got it.
Something that's peculiar about us is that the service division, we solve problems. And most of the time, we're not supposed to call up for help. We're standalone solving problems. And I have been married for over 30 years. And a lot of people in this field end up having problems working all those hours. And they aren't going to people for help. And I am passionate about this. I believe it's 988 is the number. If there are people that are so stressed out or they're thinking suicidal thoughts or they're at the end of themselves, that they can call that number for help. It was something that was greatly pushed through the UA when we've been out there. And one of the very low points in this field is when people feel so overwhelmed that they take their lives. And that's not only in this field, but it's something that's particular to the service guys because we solve problems for a living. And we don't ask for help a lot of times, and the help is available. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
And there's so much pressure to perform from so many different angles, and even things like traffic.
To speak to that for a minute, if we miss anything, the compressor dies.
Yeah.
If it's electrical, if it's water, if it's refrigeration, if it's air, anything is wrong and the costs go up and the compressor dies and we're supposed to be able to solve it. And that's a lot of pressure on us because it always shows up. It'll eventually show up. And I think to your point, Eric, with collecting data, that shows where that failure starts to take place at an increased rate right now with all that. Because when it just barely starts, it'll show up in energy costs or in numbers that are not okay. And we have to go there and fine tune it at that point. In the past, we would just, of course, dump more refrigerant into it or put a hard start capacitor on it.
Yeah.
Wait until it failed and then you have to go replace it or something like that at 2 a.m. But
yes,
I personally think a lot of the data collection that we have today and the capability we have to transfer data has been a bit of a change in this industry that I'm not sure that a lot of the industry has caught up with.
And it's also, like Mike mentioned, the transformation of the data into useful information that you can act on. That's the crucial part where the training and the wisdom, as you mentioned, Mike, comes into play. Well, it's been a very great conversation. I always enjoy talking to you. We talk a couple times a year. We email a little bit, see each other at these conferences. Good to get you on the podcast and get your thoughts out here. Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks again for listening to the Building HVAC Science Podcast. I also host the Res Talk podcast where you can learn more about all the things happening in the world of home energy ratings and peripheral topics. If you have any questions or wish to send us a topic or a request or just reach out, you can reach us at marketing@truetechtools.com. That's TRUTECHTOOLS.com. And that is also our website. And if you're interested in purchasing any products that can be used for service work, TrueTechTools.com has got you covered. But only do this if you're a trained pro. If you're not a trained pro, please consult with and hire a trained professional. The Building HVAC Science Podcast is a production of True Tech Tools Limited. In full disclosure, I'm the owner of True Tech. And the opinions expressed are those of my guests, my co-host, or myself, depending on who is speaking, of course. And if you're in the market for these tools or test instruments, as I mentioned before, you can look at what we carry, and you can use the offer code HVACBS for a nice discount. Thank you for listening to and hopefully following Building HVAC Science and sharing it. If you've not subscribed, please consider doing so. Until next time, we'll bring you back some great new episodes on Building HVAC Science. Take care.